Harper, you know you're supposed to handle the family trip arrangements again this year, right? My sister Brooke said over the phone, her voice carrying that familiar tone of expectation mixed with entitlement. I was sitting in my home office in Portland, Oregon, reviewing quarterly reports for my marketing consulting business, Velmark Ventures. At 31, I had built something meaningful from nothing, but to my family, I was still just the reliable one who handled logistics and picked up tabs. Of course, I replied, though something twisted in my stomach. Same as always. My name is Harper Bell, and for the past 6 years, I've been the unofficial family vacation coordinator and primary financial contributor. What started as offering to help with my parents' anniversary trip had evolved into an annual expectation that I would plan and largely fund elaborate family getaways. This year's Hawaii trip was supposed to be the biggest yet, 17 family members across 3 generations, including my parents, siblings, their spouses, and various cousins. Great. Mom's been talking about how excited everyone is. We're thinking 5 rental cars should be enough for everyone to get around the island, Brooke continued, already assuming I'd agree to everything. 5 cars? I asked, mentally calculating the expense. How many people are we talking about exactly? Well, there's Mom and Dad, obviously. Then me and Jake with the kids. Trevor and Madison are bringing their whole crew. Cousin Jessica's family of 4. Uncle Marcus and Aunt Patricia. The Hendersons from Dad's side. Oh, and Great Aunt Dorothy insisted on coming this time. I grabbed a pen and started jotting down names. 17 people total, not counting myself. The rental cars alone would cost thousands, not to mention the hotel rooms, flights, and activities. That sounds like quite a group, I said carefully. Have you all been discussing this somewhere? I feel like I'm missing some of the planning details. There was a brief pause on Brooke's end. Oh, you know how it is. We've just been throwing around ideas in the family chat. Nothing concrete yet. The family chat. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my messages, but I couldn't find any recent group conversations about Hawaii. In fact, I couldn't find any family group chat at all. A cold realization began to settle in my chest. Which family chat? I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. Just the usual one. Anyway, I should go. Jake's calling me. But you'll get everything sorted out, right? You're so good at this stuff. The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone screen. The usual family chat that apparently didn't include me. For the first time, I wondered if I was truly family to them, or just a convenient bank account with vacation planning skills. Growing up in Spokane, Washington, I had always been the responsible one. While my siblings Brooke and Trevor focused on their social lives and dreams, I worked part-time jobs through high school and saved every penny for college. My parents, Robert and Linda Bell, were loving but struggled financially. Dad worked at a lumber mill, and Mom cleaned houses to make ends meet. I earned a full scholarship to Portland State University and graduated with a business degree and 0 debt. By 25, I had launched my own marketing consultancy, specializing in helping small businesses build their online presence. The work was fulfilling, and more importantly, it was profitable. Very profitable. My family's perception of me shifted dramatically when the money started flowing in. Suddenly, I wasn't just Harper. I was Harper who could afford things. Harper who could help out when times got tough. Harper who could make dreams happen. It started innocently enough. Mom mentioned wanting to take Dad somewhere special for their 25th wedding anniversary, but they couldn't afford anything elaborate. I surprised them with a week in Napa Valley, complete with wine tours and a luxury hotel. Their joy was intoxicating, and I felt genuinely good about being able to give back to parents who had sacrificed so much. But then came Brooke's wedding. She needed help with the venue deposit. Then Trevor's job loss meant he couldn't contribute to a family Christmas celebration. Uncle Marcus's medical bills left him unable to join family gatherings unless someone else covered his expenses. Each time, I stepped in, and each time, the requests became more casual, more expected. The annual family vacation tradition began 3 years ago when my grandmother passed away and left the family a small inheritance. Instead of dividing it equally, my parents suggested using it as a foundation for a big family trip to honor her memory. Of course, the inheritance only covered about 30% of the actual costs. Somehow, I ended up covering the rest. Last year's trip to Yellowstone cost me nearly $38,000. The year before, our week in the Outer Banks ran $42,000. I told myself it was worth it to see everyone together, to create memories. But lately, I'd started noticing how the family dynamic shifted during these trips. I wasn't really participating as much as I was facilitating. I was the one coordinating activities, handling logistics, managing conflicts, and solving problems while everyone else enjoyed themselves. Still, I kept doing it because I loved my family, and I believed they appreciated what I was doing. The idea that they might be planning and discussing this year's trip without me had never occurred to me. But Brooke's casual mention of the usual family chat was beginning to plant seeds of doubt that I couldn't ignore. That evening, I decided to call my cousin Jessica to clarify some details about the Hawaii trip. Jessica had always been straightforward with me, and I figured she could fill in the gaps about the planning process. "Harper, perfect timing," Jessica said when she picked up. "I was just looking at flights to Honolulu. This trip is going to be incredible." "Yeah, about that," I said, settling into my couch with a cup of tea. "I feel like I'm missing some of the coordination details. Brooke mentioned you all have been discussing things in a family chat." There was a silence on Jessica's end that lasted just a beat too long. "Oh, well, you know how these things go. People just start throwing out ideas." "Right, but which chat specifically? I don't seem to have access to whatever group you're using." Another pause. "Harper, can I ask you something? Are you okay with funding this whole thing again? Because I know it's a lot of money, and if you're having second thoughts..." Her question hit me like a slap. "What do you mean, am I okay with it? Did someone suggest I wasn't?" No, nothing like that. It's just... Well, Brooke mentioned that maybe we should start planning things without assuming you'll cover everything. You know, be more independent." My heart started racing. "Planning things without me?" "Not without you," Jessica said quickly. "Just, not relying on you to handle all the financial stuff. Maybe everyone could contribute more equally this time." I felt something cold and hard forming in my stomach. "Jessica, can you do me a favor? Can you screenshot the family chat conversation about Hawaii and send it to me? I want to make sure I understand what everyone's thinking." The silence this time was deafening. Finally, Jessica sighed. "Harper, I'm not sure that's a good idea." "Why not?" "Because you're not in that chat." The words hung in the air between us. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. They had created a family group chat specifically to plan a trip they expected me to fund, and they had deliberately excluded me from it. "I see," I said quietly. "Harper, please don't be upset. It wasn't meant to hurt you. It's just that sometimes when you're involved in the planning from the beginning, you tend to take over everything, and people wanted to feel more involved in the decision-making process. I took over everything. I organized everything because no one else would step up. I handled the logistics because when I didn't, chaos ensued. I managed the details because the alternative was disappointment and conflict." "So let me understand this correctly," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "The family decided to plan a vacation without including me in any of the discussions, but they still expect me to pay for it? It's not like that, Harper. You know we appreciate everything you do." But as I hung up the phone, I realized that appreciation and respect were two very different things. The next morning, I woke up with a sick feeling in my stomach. I'd barely slept, replaying Jessica's words over and over. I decided to reach out to Trevor, hoping he might give me a clearer picture of what was really happening. "Hey, bro," I texted him. "Can we talk about the Hawaii trip? I'm a bit confused about the planning timeline." His response came quickly. "Everything's under control, Harper. Don't stress about it. We've got the basic framework sorted out. Great. Can you add me to the group chat so I can see what's been discussed? This time, his response took longer. Actually, let me call you. When Trevor called, his voice had that careful tone people use when they're about to deliver bad news gently. Harper, look, I need to be honest with you about something. I'm listening. The family has been talking, and we think maybe it's time for you to step back from these trips a little bit. Not step back entirely, he added quickly, but maybe not be so central to everything. I sat down hard on my kitchen chair. What does that mean exactly? It means that maybe this year we all contribute equally. Everyone pays their own way, makes their own arrangements. It would be more fair, don't you think? I almost laughed. More fair? Trevor, I've been paying for 70% of these family vacations for 3 years. You're telling me that now that you want to go somewhere expensive like Hawaii, suddenly everyone wants to contribute equally? That's not how we see it, Harper. We think you've been, well, buying your way into being in charge of everything. And it's made some people uncomfortable. The accusation was so stunning that I couldn't speak for a moment. Buying my way into being in charge? I had been in charge because no one else wanted to handle the work, the stress, the coordination, or the responsibility when things went wrong. So let me understand this, I said slowly. You all created a group chat without me to plan a trip to Hawaii, but you still expect me to pay for it? No one expects you to pay for anything, Harper. That's the point. We want to do this independently. Then why didn't anyone tell me that directly? Why am I finding out through conversations where people slip up and mention chats I'm not part of? Trevor sighed. Because we knew you'd react like this. We knew you'd get upset and try to take control of the planning again. I felt like I was in an alternate universe. I get upset when I find out my family is lying to me and excluding me. That seems like a reasonable reaction. We're not excluding you, Harper. You're invited to come. You're just not invited to plan everything or pay for everything. But you've already been planning without me for weeks, haven't you? Another pause. Yes. How long has this group chat existed? About 6 weeks. 6 weeks. For 6 weeks, my family had been enthusiastically planning a vacation, discussing details, making decisions, sharing excitement, and they had deliberately kept me out of every single conversation. But they still expected me to show up and participate, as if I had been part of the process all along. Trevor, I need to ask you something, and I want a straight answer. Do you actually want me on this trip, or do you just want my money? That's not fair, Harper. Answer the question. The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Finally, Trevor said, Of course we want you there. Your family. But the hesitation before his answer told me everything I needed to know. I wasn't family to them. I was a bank account that occasionally joined family activities. After I hung up with Trevor, I sat in my kitchen for a long time, staring at my phone. I felt hollow, like someone had scooped out my insides with a spoon. Then, slowly, anger began to fill the empty space. I opened my laptop and logged into my email. Over the years, I had become the family's unofficial travel agent, handling all the bookings and arrangements. This meant I had access to confirmation numbers, reservation details, and account information for this year's planned Hawaii trip. I found the email thread with Paradise Getaway Travel, the agency I'd been working with for the past month to arrange the Hawaii vacation. The total cost was $50,800. 17 people, 7 nights at the Maui Grand Resort, 5 rental cars, and a sunset dinner cruise for the whole group. I had already put down a $20,000 deposit, with the balance due in 10 days. The entire trip was in my name, booked with my credit card, because everyone had agreed it was easier for me to handle the financial coordination. But here's what my family didn't know. The reservation was fully refundable until 48 hours before travel, and they had no access to the booking details because everything was in my name only. I stared at the computer screen for a long time, my finger hovering over the mouse. Then I thought about 6 weeks of family group chats I wasn't part of. 6 weeks of discussions about a trip they expected me to fund. 6 weeks of deliberate exclusion, followed by casual expectation that I'd fall in line. I thought about Trevor's accusation that I was buying my way into being in charge. I thought about Jessica's suggestion that I was someone they needed to plan around rather than plan with. I thought about Brooke's dismissive tone when she mentioned the usual family chat that I wasn't part of. My phone buzzed with a text from my mom. "Harper, honey, just wanted to make sure you got the Hawaii details sorted out. Everyone's so excited. Love you." The casual assumption in her message that of course I would handle everything, that of course I would pay for everything, even after they had specifically excluded me from planning, was the final straw. I clicked on the Paradise Getaway travel website and logged into my account. The cancellation button was right there, innocuous and small. I clicked it. "Are you sure you want to cancel this reservation?" the pop-up asked. I thought about my family's excitement. I thought about the kids looking forward to swimming with dolphins. I thought about my parents, who had been talking about this trip for months. Then I thought about being deliberately excluded from 6 weeks of planning for a trip I was supposed to fund. I clicked, "Yes, cancel reservation." Your reservation has been successfully canceled. A refund of $20,000 will be processed within 3 to 5 business days. I closed the laptop and turned off my phone. I needed some space to think about what I'd just done and what came next. The silence in my house felt different now. Not empty, but peaceful. For the first time in months, I wasn't worried about coordinating anyone else's travel, managing anyone else's expectations, or solving anyone else's problems. I made myself a cup of coffee and sat on my back porch, watching the rain fall on my garden. Tomorrow morning, my family would discover that their Hawaii trip no longer existed. They would be angry, confused, and desperate to find someone to blame. But for right now, in this moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Completely free. I woke up at 7 a.m. to the sound of my phone buzzing incessantly on my nightstand. I had turned it back on before bed, curious to see how long it would take for someone to discover the canceled reservation. Apparently, not very long. My phone screen showed 96 missed calls, 43 unread text messages, and 17 voicemails. The calls had started at 5:30 a.m. and were coming from every family member who had my number. I made coffee first, then sat down to listen to the voicemails. "Harper, this is Mom. Please call me back immediately. There's been some kind of mistake with the Hawaii reservation." Her voice was tight with panic. "Harper, it's Brooke. What the hell did you do? The travel agency says you canceled our entire trip. Call me back right now." Her voice was sharp with anger. "Harper, this is Dad. I don't understand what's happening. Can you please call us so we can sort this out?" He sounded confused and hurt. The messages continued in the same vein. Panic, anger, confusion, demands that I call back and fix the situation. Not one person asked if I was okay or why I might have made this decision. They all simply assumed it was a mistake that I needed to correct immediately. I was scrolling through the text messages when my phone rang again. It was my mom. "Harper, thank goodness. What happened with the reservation? The travel agency says you canceled everything yesterday." "I did cancel it," I said calmly. Silence. Then, "Why would you do that? Everyone's been looking forward to this trip for months." "Have they?" I asked. "Because from what I understand, everyone's been planning this trip for 6 weeks in a group chat that I wasn't included in. So I'm curious how you know what everyone's been looking forward to." Another silence. When Mom spoke again, her voice was carefully controlled. "Harper, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "I don't think there has been. I think the understanding is perfectly clear. You all wanted to plan a family vacation without me but still expected me to pay for it. So I removed myself from the equation entirely." "That's not what happened, sweetheart. You're still invited to come." We just thought it would be nice if everyone contributed equally this time. Then everyone can book their own reservations and contribute equally, I said. I'm sure the 17 of you can coordinate your own travel arrangements. Harper, please be reasonable. The trip is in 3 weeks. Everything's booked up now, and the prices have gone up significantly since we first looked. I had anticipated this. Peak season Hawaii travel, booked last minute, would cost at least double what I had originally reserved. Maybe triple. That sounds like a planning problem, I said. I'm sure if you all put your heads together in your group chat, you'll figure something out. This is ridiculous, Harper. You're punishing everyone because your feelings got hurt. My feelings didn't get hurt, Mom. I made a business decision. You all decided you wanted to plan this trip independently, without my input, so now you can fund it independently too. You know we can't afford to do this on our own. Not at these prices. Then maybe you should have thought about that before excluding me from the planning process. I could hear her frustrated sigh through the phone. Harper, please. Your father and I have already requested time off work. The kids are so excited. Can't we work something out? The time to work something out was 6 weeks ago when you created that group chat. I'm done being your convenient bank account. I hung up and turned my phone off again. Outside, it was a beautiful Oregon morning, clear and bright. I had nowhere I needed to be, no one else's crisis to manage, no expectations to fulfill except my own. For the first time in years, my day belonged entirely to me. By afternoon, the calls had escalated to family members showing up at my house. I watched through my window as Brooke and Trevor pulled into my driveway, their faces set with determination and anger. I didn't answer the door. Harper! Brooke shouted, pounding on the front door. We know you're in there, open up! I sat in my living room, calmly reading a book, while they banged and shouted outside. After 20 minutes, they gave up and left, but not before Brooke left a long, profanity-filled voicemail about how selfish and vindictive I was being. Later that evening, I turned my phone back on to find a text from Jessica. Harper, I tried to rebook the Hawaii trip for everyone. The same resort is now quoting $136,000 for the same dates. No one can afford this. Please reconsider. I typed back, I'm not reconsidering anything. You all made your choice when you excluded me from planning. Now you can live with the consequences. Within an hour, I received a call from Uncle Marcus. Harper, I understand you're upset, but you're hurting people who had nothing to do with this group chat situation. Your great-aunt Dorothy has been talking about this trip for months. She's 87 years old. This might be her last chance to travel with the family. It was a good guilt trip, I had to admit. But I wasn't backing down. Uncle Marcus, where was this concern for family unity when they were excluding me from 6 weeks of planning discussions? Where was this worry about hurting people when they were calling me controlling for organizing trips I was paying for? Harper, please. The answer is no. If you want to plan a family vacation, plan it yourself and pay for it yourself. I'm done being your family ATM. I hung up and blocked his number. Then I blocked everyone else's numbers too. The next week, I heard through the grapevine that my family had managed to book a much smaller, much cheaper vacation to Cannon Beach, Oregon. Instead of 17 people in luxury accommodations, it was just 8 people in a basic beach rental. Instead of 7 nights, it was 3. Instead of a tropical paradise, it was a rainy weekend on the Oregon coast. But the real fallout was just beginning. Word of what had happened spread beyond our immediate family. Cousins, aunts, and uncles who hadn't been part of the Hawaii trip began reaching out to me, having heard different versions of the story from different family members. My cousin Allison called me. Harper, I heard about what happened with the vacation. I just wanted you to know that what they did was completely wrong. Creating a group chat without you but expecting you to pay? That's awful. More family members began taking sides. Some supported my decision, saying they'd been uncomfortable with how much financial pressure had been placed on me over the years. Others criticized me for being petty and vindictive. The family was fracturing, And for the first time, I wasn't the one trying to hold it together. I wasn't mediating conflicts, smoothing over hurt feelings, or finding compromises. I was letting them deal with the mess they'd created. My parents tried a different approach, sending me a letter instead of calling. It was full of hurt feelings and accusations, but it also contained an admission I'd been waiting for. We realize now that we may have taken your generosity for granted over the years. May have taken it for granted. Even in their apology, they couldn't fully own what they'd done. I wrote back, "When you're ready to have an honest conversation about how I've been treated, I'll be here. Until then, plan your own trips." I didn't hear back from them for 3 weeks. The consequences for my family were swift and lasting. The failed Hawaii trip became family legend, but not in the way they'd hoped. Instead of bonding memories in paradise, they had a story of exclusion, entitlement, and spectacular backfire. Brooke and Trevor struggled to rebuild relationships with cousins who had lost respect for how they'd treated me. My parents faced awkward questions at family gatherings about why they'd allowed their daughter to be excluded from planning a trip she was expected to fund. Uncle Marcus found himself mediating conflicts he'd never had to handle before, now that I wasn't available to smooth things over. The family dynamic had permanently shifted, and they were forced to confront how much they'd relied on me not just financially, but emotionally and logistically. As for me, I discovered something liberating about setting boundaries. I continued my consulting work with renewed energy, traveled to places I wanted to see, and built relationships based on mutual respect rather than financial dependency. 6 months later, when my parents finally called to offer a genuine apology and invite me to a small family dinner with no expectations attached, I accepted. But I never again became the family's automatic solution to money problems or planning challenges. Looking back on that moment when I clicked cancel reservation, I realized it wasn't just revenge. It was the first step toward reclaiming my worth and teaching my family the difference between love and convenience.